We're going live. Maybe we are live.
We are live. Yes, it's live.
Live and counting. Hello, everybody. Come on in. Come on in. It's a special edition of the Sunday Funnies. We're glad you're here. Come on in. We know you're out there.
Yeah.
We can hear footsteps in the hallway.
We can smell them.
It's that crowd noise.
Huh.
We don't want to tell people we can smell them.
Yeah.
There's something.
Huh.
Anyway.
Come on in, everybody. Come on in. There's 0 people here so far. It's all good. We know you're here. Hit that like button. Let us know you're alive. Welcome everybody on Indie Volt Radio who is listening. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. We have a very important and special edition of Sunday Funnies this morning. For us, it's morning. I'm your host, Randy Zimmerman. I'm a longtime alternative and independent comics creator and producer. Done a lot of things, but not as much as our guest. So our guest has been around. Yeah. Our guest has been around for decades. She has done and been in a lot of places and done a lot of things. And
up until you said she, I thought you meant Glenn Fleming.
Glenn Fleming, yes. I don't think Glenn's alive yet in the chat. Glenn, are you there? Come on in. But yeah, we are going to play a recorded interview that we were able to do with Trina Robbins a couple days ago, where we talk about her life and her career in comics. And then we will be back afterwards. The interview is about an hour and a half long. Mostly conducted by Daphne. And Daphne, I should have you introduce yourself.
Well, hello. My name is Daphne Lage, and I am a cartoonist, illustrator, and comic book artist from New York. I have been self-publishing comics since 1992, and I am known for the funny animal fantasy Tall Tales and my medieval drama Eagle Raven, Heir of the First Unicorn. You can read both my comics at Tall Tales, TAILS online.com and egoworks.com, EGOWORKS. And watch my videos on how I make these comics on YouTube at Daphne Lage, Lage Art. And I want to apologize to everybody at the forefront for my awkward interview style. I thought I was more prepared than I really was, but I think the interview worked out well regardless.
Well, even when you're prepared, you're not really prepared.
Yeah.
You can, and you'll see in the interview, you can read somebody's bio online or on Wikipedia, and that's not necessarily the way it goes down.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Comics history has been so fluid because a lot of times these folks were working under a deadline, or nobody knew or thought that comics would become such a part of American pop culture. At the time, they were just dealing with whatever audience they could possibly grab, and especially once the direct market started up and that audience became incredibly condensed and focused. That much to the detriment of the art form. And that's part of the. What do you mean? Bah?
I was thinking that she was just starstruck.
That too.
Well, that too. I think we both were. I think me and Randy both were.
Russ is in the house. Good morning, Russ. Yeah, there's a couple of pregnant pauses here in the interview, and we were like going, "Oh,
yeah, but, exactly."
But this is important. This interview is very important. It's somebody that you don't get to hear from often enough, that has a unique viewpoint of both the mainstream and the underground comic scene. You don't have a whole lot of people that have dealt in the many different worlds of sequential art.
Yeah.
And is now a prolific author. So we're going to run that interview here in a minute. Also, Varian Grant is with us today. I don't know if you're at the front of the tape or not. I don't think
No. I knew better. I got the heck out of there before you guys started recording.
You jumped out.
I said hello to Trina. I didn't want to be the I didn't want to giggle and fanboy all over the video. So I was like, I'm getting out of here. Saving face.
We are going to leave the chat running. We cannot respond to you during the interview. We're just going to run the interview in its naked entirety, in its transparency that it is.
That's for sure.
There's fumbles and flaws, and there's mistakes, and there's pregnant pauses, but it's the way it is, and it's a nice interview. So, hello, Glenn. Hello, Mike, Jimmy, Lorta De Bruin. Hey, lovelies. Hope you're having a wonderful Sunday. We are, Mike. Hope you are too. Russ is in the house.
Hey,
because
Russ.
it's past lunchtime here, but I'll get some more coffee and feel part of the vibe. Absolutely. Yeah, we're just waking up here. I'm in Flint, Michigan. Varian's in Sterling Heights, and Daphne's in New York. So New York.
Yeah, New York.
Hi, Indie Volters. Hi, Imperium Vol. And in case you missed it, like I said, good morning, Vietnam, and everywhere else. Yeah. Hey, Pops. Hope you're doing well.
Pops. Yeah.
Pops is in the middle of CromCon, I believe. That ends today. Hello, everyone in the multiverse.
Hey.
Yes, exactly, Marvy. Poncho, thanks for listening.
There's a lot of new names here.
Haven't seen your name before, and you are more than welcome here. Naked Giggles. There we are.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
Like that's I said, Oh, go ahead.
No. That kind of comes up too.
Yeah. Like I said, we are going to leave the chat open. We'll address the chat once we get back from the interview. The interview is about an hour and 25 minutes. And like I said, it is with Comics and Comix legend Trina Robbins. So if you're not familiar with her work, you will be by the time the interview is over, because I think we covered just about every aspect of what she's doing and what she's planning on doing and what she's got planned in the future. So I think without further ado, we can run that.
All right.
Miss Robbins.
I'm going to pop this up.
Like I said, I mean, usually when it comes to everything, other people tend to dominate the conversation. So I guess it's like, let's start from the beginning. It's like, so who is Trina Robbins?
Could we get a little more specific?
Well, I mean, it's like, so
how's this? We have an internet radio audience. So for our radio listeners, please introduce yourself and tell folks about yourself.
I'm Trina Robbins. I've been around forever. I'm a writer and a retired cartoonist, but not a retired writer. I write books and comics. I'm a historian. I write about women who have not been written about, women who wrote comics, who drew comics, who have not been written about until I started, really, because the guys, all the comics histories were written by guys. And when guys write comics histories, they're not interested in the women. They just want to write about Spider-Man and the Hulk and Stan Lee and Jack Kirby.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, so what were your earliest influences? I guess like that brought you into cartooning.
Well, I always read. I read since the age of 4. My mother was a school teacher, a second grade school teacher, and when I was 4, she decided I was old enough to learn to read, and she taught me, and I just dove in. I mean, I'm sure lots of people have had the same experience. It just opens a world. It really opens a world for you. And drawing, I didn't need anyone to teach me that. I just drew all my life. And one of the things, I read everything. So I read comics too. And I loved comics.
And what was the comics that you started reading at?
Well, in the beginning, my mother would buy me comics. And she would get me I see as in the background, you've got Funny Animals there.
That's
the Funny Animal comics and the really young kid comics that don't exist anymore. Well, the new comics for kids exist now. But as soon as I was old enough to cross 2 streets to get to the corner candy store that had a comic rack that said, "Hey Kids Comics," and you could twirl it around, you had to cross 2 streets to get there. So as soon as I was old enough to cross 2 streets by myself with a dime in my hand, I would go down there once a week and buy comics. And basically what I did was I bought every comic that featured a girl or a woman, not just featured, but starred. She had to be on the cover and she had to be the star of the story, not the superhero's girlfriend, but the star of the story. And I bought all the comics that were about women and girls.
So even at that age, you kind of had that connection.
Always,
Yeah. Okay.
always.
Wow. Which was like the one? Did you have like kind of like an epiphany moment where it's like you saw the one thing that says this is what I want to do for the rest of my life?
Well, I wrote and I drew. Oh, yeah, along with reading, I was writing. I was writing stories very, very early on. And in those days, there were things that girls could grow up to do besides being, of course, there was the housewife and the have kids. But other than that, there was like secretary, if you were really adventurous, stewardess,
Yeah.
nurse, not doctor, nurse.
Okay, you're starting to freeze a little bit on my end, so I am going to step out and let the two of you talk.
That's because I'm getting too excited.
No, that's
there
fine.
you
You're fine. Please
Just keep
continue on.
Okay. So, so the kids in school, they would talk about what they wanted to be when they grew up, secretary, nurse, stewardess, if you were really adventurous. And I would say, well, I want to write stories and illustrate them. And that, of course, is what comics are.
Right. It's so it wasn't like one specific, because like for me it was I came into it late, so it's like the thing that influenced, that said I want to do this was a combination of Rocket Raccoon and ElfQuest, and finding those.
Oh, ElfQuest, God,
yeah,
that meant so much to so many girls.
Yeah. Oh, it really did. It really did. So I was, so I guess it's like you had such a varied comic exposure that it just everything just I guess just got
I'm
you
sorry,
on that road.
I know I'm fussing with this. It's because
no, not at all, not at all.
No, it's because I have a mirror image, and so I want to fix this, but I keep turning to the wrong part.
Yeah. No, not at all. It's like please feel free to be you.
It takes a minute to get used to.
Yeah. Yeah. So you were always so early on you were always in New York, right? So you didn't
yes.
So you, up until this point, you're still in New York. I think what part mostly? I mean, what part?
What part are we talking about?
Oh, I guess where you grew up.
I grew up in New York. I grew up in Queens, New York.
Oh, you too. Yes. Okay.
Oh, no, Queens, where?
Queens represent.
Where?
Oh, in Flushing.
Flushing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I went to Queens College.
There you go. Flushing. So there we go. Yeah. So so we're practically neighbors, except for now. So when did you start like moving into more like, okay, so you had like this influence in writing and comics, and did you like start off just like all of a sudden you were just doing professional work, or was it more like you kind of got into like, I don't know, like a fandom type and then moved into professional?
Well, I was a science fiction fan in high school. I discovered science fiction at about the age of 14 and dove into that too. There was a point at which that was all I read, except for the books you had to read for school.
Yeah.
All I read was science fiction. I got into science fiction fandom, and I was drawing little things for fanzines, which is how a lot of people start.
Yeah. Any like particular fanzines that you
just
remember?
Anybody who would ask me to draw.
Oh, just anybody, sure. Right? Yeah. So in science fiction, what were the books that really influenced you?
God, I loved Bradbury. Discovering Bradbury was amazing. I mean, it was like a third eye opens up on your forehead, Sturgeon too. There weren't many women writing science fiction yet when I started.
Wow. Okay. I mean, it's funny. Did you find that you were finding more women doing comics than were writing science fiction at the time?
No, there were more women. There were not many women writing science fiction, but there were more women writing science fiction than drawing comics.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. I mean, I would think that I don't know. For some reason, I would have thought that more of them would have been. I guess like.
Well, we're talking about when I was 14.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's kind of like, I'm trying to do like the, like trying to get the context, and it's like, wow, it's like, okay, it's like, it's kind of hard to not involve like modern sensibilities into thinking about what was going on at that time. So that's what I'm trying to. So when okay, so you went into fandom, so you got involved in fandom. So when you started, like, so I guess it's like, so the next thing is like, so when did you start actually doing your comic book work professionally? I guess
it depends on what you mean by professionally.
Yeah, I keep getting asked that question too. Like,
sorry,
that's okay.
I have allergies.
Oh yeah.
No problem.
Oh dear. Okay.
All right.
Yeah, I tried the double layout, and Trina just comes through so pixelated. We'll just keep it like this.
Okay. All right. That's fine. Right.
Okay. So, where were we?
Let's see. Trying to find your profession, first
what
professional.
You're talking about is probably my first underground comics, which I did for the East Village Other, starting in 1966. I've been living in Los Angeles, and I came back to New York and lived in the Lower East Side, the East Village, and started by drawing comics for the East Village Other, which we called Evo, and I'm going to refer to it as Evo from now on.
Mm-hmm. And so what? So I guess professional. So this would be your first like officially published work.
Yes.
In Evo, right? And so when, so how did that like keep pulling your trajectory towards underground comics, and then getting involved in that crew? Well, who was your crew?
Well, I didn't have a crew. Well, there were about, you could really count us on the finger of one hand in the beginning in underground comics.
Wow. Okay.
People who lived in New York and mostly hung around the Lower East Side and drew comics. And most of us were published in Evo. That was the beginning.
Wow. Okay. So they're really, because it's like, I kind of wondered whether, because so there really wasn't like that many women doing this then.
There was one woman doing it, and that was me in 1966.
Wow.
Actually, no, that's not true, because the woman who inspired me, but I didn't know she was a woman. When I was still in Los Angeles, someone showed me a copy of the East Village Other and said, "Look what they're doing in New York," and it was really, far out, and there were comics in it. That was the first time it had occurred to me that you could draw comics that were not superheroes, comics that were about your life, the counterculture. And one of them was this big full-page comic called Gentle's Trip Out. And it was very psychedelic and didn't really quite make sense, but it was very designy and quite beautiful. And I thought, that's what I want to do. And it was signed Panzika. And it wasn't until at least a couple years later, maybe 1968, that I discovered that Panzika was a woman. Huh. So my first inspiration, you might say, was a woman.
And you didn't even know it. That's amazing.
No, I didn't know it.
That's funny. It's kind of funny that sounds, how underground comics sounds similar to like the beginning of like graffiti culture here in New York. That it's the same thing. It's like you only know people by their pen names, their tag names. And so if there weren't that many women drawing comics, then what, I guess like then okay, you said you didn't have a crew because because like again, it's like whenever we hear about like underground comics, I hear about Robert Crumb and his crew. So who did you I guess hang out with in order to encourage this?
Crew? Who was his crew?
Every time I hear about him, it's Crumb. Like I hear these names like Crumb and Spain and there were some other names, but it always sounded like he had a crew. So it's like I guess like I said, it's like I'm not familiar with this particular history of comics.
How's this? How did that your drawing in East Village Other lead to you doing women's comics?
There you go. Okay, you see, because he's really the expert here.
Okay, well that's 4 years later.
There we go.
Actually, women's comics is 6 years later. Mm-hmm. The first all-woman comic book that I produced was It Ain't Me, Babe. And that was in 1970. And that was in San Francisco already. So I had already been drawing comics in New York, in the Lower East Side, first for Evo, and then, oh God, hold on, I'm sorry.
Yep. Sure, no problem.
Not a problem. Just want to remind our Sunday Funnies folks that you're listening to the Sunday's Funnies for, what is that going to be, 228? Is it Friday, Saturday?
Okay.
Yeah, 228, 21.
Okay,
Trina Robbins.
Here I am again.
Here we go.
Okay, so first for Evo, and then there was a publication coming out of Berkeley. We started seeing comics from other places, basically. And there was a publication coming out of Berkeley called Yellow Dog. And I sent work to them and they published it. So now I was being published in San Francisco and in Berkeley, all the way across the country. Okay. And very slowly, San Francisco became the place to do underground comics. So in December 1969, I moved to San Francisco and have been here ever since.
Okay. Good. Right. So that was so what did you feel how did you feel like made Berkeley? It's like, 'cause you said, it was the place to be. Like, what was the thing that said, yeah, that's true, and I have to be out there?
Well, the very first underground comic book, Zap Comics, came out of San Francisco, and Crumb was living in the Haight at the time, and pushing he had his comics, Zap Comics, in a baby carriage, and he would push it around the Haight, selling copies of his comics. And very quickly after that, underground comics publishers in the Bay Area, the San Francisco Bay Area, started publishing underground comics. I mean, there was the print mint, they were the first really, but then soon there were many others. There were at least 4, I think, publishers of underground comics. And in New York, we were just still doing comics in Evo, Wow, the difference. Okay. I mean, what they were doing in San Francisco was comic books,
Wow. Okay. So, right. Oh, so in New York, it's like, it was, wow. Okay. 'Cause that sounds like kind of night and day.
Two different coasts. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, really.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
It's all
okay.
right. It's all right.
Because all right. So that means that so in the end, it's like that explains to me like why California was such a big deal, because it didn't sound like, well, it's like New York kind of had a scene, but not really, because everyone ended up going out to California.
That's right.
Anyway.
And they did. In 1970, just about the entire population of underground cartoonists who lived in New York came out to San Francisco.
And did you find, because of that you were able to like fit in better, I guess, to say? Like, did you
I
find?
didn't fit in. I
Oh,
didn't fit in at all. It was all guys.
oh no.
And I was a feminist, and they were really threatened by feminism.
Wow.
Really threatened.
So wow. So even out in California, like there wasn't like all of a sudden like more female cartoonists to
There was
hang out
one
with?
other woman cartoonist,
Wow.
Willie Mendez, who had also come from New York, and we were friends. And she was getting it too. She was getting the same lack of acceptance.
Wow. Okay. All right. So, all right. Like I said, it's like this is another side of the history that it's kind of like it's very opposite of what I was learning. It's like you said, it's like the guys tell a different story. So, and I had this idea that there was something more going on than there really was. I mean, I'm like you, when you said you could literally count the female cartoonists on one hand, you were not kidding. Okay. That was not hyperbole. So was there anything, so on top of, doing the underground comics, I mean, were you still involved in science fiction fandom at this point?
No.
Right. Were you doing like any like other type of like creative output in California at this time, along with the underground comics, or was it just the underground comics?
I was just drawing comics.
Mm.
I was also being a single mother, which took up a lot of my time.
Well, yeah, that'll do it, right? So what do you, so around this, so with your underground work, what do you think is the work that I guess, I don't know if like that stands out for you the most? Like, I don't know if I want to say like is your proudest moment or like your proudest work.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm very proud that I produced the very first all-woman comic book ever. That was at A Me Babe, 1970.
Wow. And it was who and like you said, you had there weren't that many. So who did you have involved?
I had to find women who drew, whose work I had seen, and ask them to do a comic. They'd never done comics, except for Willie, of course. Willie and I produced at least half of the book, I think, filled in half of the book with our comics. And the other half was all women who'd never drawn comics before.
Wow. So you literally had to start from scratch with some of
that.
Wow. And did you have like, I remember Dan mentioning something about like you were having problems.
There's it, me, babe.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. That you had problems even getting like printers to touch, to print your stuff, or was it just publishers?
No, that was much later.
Wow.
That was in probably about 1977. When I was asked to edit an anthology of women's comics, and I decided, since we already had the book called Women's Comics, maybe you can find an image of that.
I definitely will.
We already had that one, so I thought, well, let's do something different. I decided that since all the guys were doing sex, that it was, why shouldn't we? So I came up with a title called Wet Satin, which was women's erotic fantasies.
Wow.
And found the very, very, at this point, because of women's comics, there were a lot more women, many more women drawing comics. I asked the best of them to contribute, and it was a beautiful book. But the printer, who was in the Midwest, refused to print it because he said it was pornography.
Wow.
And meanwhile, the guys were doing, the same publisher, using the same printer, was doing an anthology called Bizarre Sex that was all done by men. And, there's Wet Satin, thank you. And the artist of this cover is Lee Mars. And the Bizarre Sex had a cover that was so obscene that it actually could not be shown on a newsstand. They had to sell it with a sheet of paper over it, covering the cover. And yet, when I said, well, what about bizarre sex? He said, well, that's satire, but your book is pornography.
Wow.
So we wound up having it printed in San Francisco, where, of course, they'll print anything.
Well, I mean, yeah, I guess. My goodness.
Oh. It's a bad.
There's my
version.
wet satin cover. Yeah.
Yep.
Can you make it a little bigger?
I can. Give me just a second.
I think he just has to find someone who put up a larger image of it.
Yeah. Yep. I do.
Wow. I mean, it's funny because it's like there's some issues that I've come across that it doesn't sound like much has changed in terms of that, and in terms of printers doing that double standard thing. There we go.
That was my cover.
And that was pornographic, huh?
Well, the cover wasn't, but they decided that the interior was.
Wow.
So I'll remember that for next time. So when guys want to be horny in comics, it's satire.
That's right. But when women do it, it's pornography.
Right. Yeah. That sounds. Oh my goodness. Wow. So you continued printing in San Francisco. So I'm pretty sure, like, so after how many issues of Wet Satin were you able
only
to
two
produce?
Because it was so much trouble getting it printed.
Wow.
But because again we had the same problem with the second issue, and again we took it to San Francisco, and it was just so much trouble getting it printed. We stopped at 2.
Wow. So then how did you so what was the next book after that then? I mean,
I did tons of books. It's not like the only 2 books I did.
Right, yeah. So is there any after that kind of like also stand out for you? Because it's like, yeah, what's funny is that because we were joking that it's like you've probably produced so many books, it's hard to keep track.
But actually, you're right.
So then what was the next book after that stands out in your memory for doing?
Well, the ones that stand out are the ones that I produced, that I edited. For instance, in I don't remember the date, and I'd have to go to the bookcase and look for the book, but it was the 80s. It was during the AIDS epidemic. I produced a book an anthology book again. I co-produced that one with 2 other editors, to comics about AIDS, to make money for AIDS-related causes. I'm very proud of that.
Oh, right. Yeah.
What were the names of that? What was the name of that book?
The book was called Strip AIDS USA.
Oh, I remember that book. Yeah. As he furiously
typed. Furiously typing. Yes.
Yes. And that was published by Ron Turner of Last Gasp. And Last Gasp was also the publisher of It Ain't Me Babe, the very first all-woman comic book that I produced, and of women's comics, which was the longest. Yep. Oh, there it is. There it is. Yeah. Yes, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I remember that. Wow.
We got some nice awards for that, and we made a lot of money for AIDS causes, so I'm quite proud of that.
So going back a bit, when you had this problem with your publisher and your printer, and you were saying that the guy cartoonists were kind of like all uptight about what you were doing with your own work. Did that like affect how you did your work? Like,
well, some of my earlier comics, the ones done in the 70s, the early 70s, like 70 and 71 and 72, are I think are very angry. They show a lot of anger.
Yeah, that would do it. So did you feel that there came like a point where you even got like some like even begrudging respect from the underground, from the majority of the underground scene?
Well, the thing is, you were talking about groups.
Yeah.
And you have to divide the underground into groups because it was the first group. You talked about Crumb and his group. It was that group. It was that group that gave me the cold shoulder.
Wow. Okay.
And then more cartoonists came along. Younger cartoonists, and only by a few years really, but like I think of them as the second generation of underground cartoonists, and they were fine with me. They were fine.
Right, because as long as we were all drawing, we were all good. Yeah.
Well, I think that they were also more feminist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So and because of that, I mean, did your work was it defined as feminist because that's how outside people saw it, or was it something that you were actually actively pushing as how you wanted your work to be seen?
Well, it was feminist because I was feminist.
There you go.
And I have what might be a totally naive question, but I've done a little bit of history reading about Wonder Woman and Marston. And that was your reading Wonder Woman a part of that growing like feminist mindset? Well,
of course, Wonder Woman was one of the comics that I read when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. I loved Wonder Woman. I'm not sure if I became a feminist because I read Wonder Woman. I think it was more like, well, I think I was always a feminist. I didn't know the word. Yeah. Right. But I mean, one of the things I loved about Wonder Woman was that she was an Amazon, mm-hmm. and she lived on an island where no men were permitted. I thought that was wonderful.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. So aside from the strip the strip aids comic, was there any other like direct art activism that you did to I guess like to continue that theme? Yeah.
Yes. In I think it was 1990 when Congress passed it was called the Webster decision. That was kind of the popular term, but it was, abortion had been legalized in 1973, but I think it was 1990, it was the early 90s anyway, they passed a resolution that put abortion ruling in the hands of the individual states.
Yeah.
And we know what has happened because of that, and we knew what was going to happen because of that. So I did a pro-choice comic. I edited and published it. I co-published it with another woman, Liz Schiller, who just happened to be the treasurer of Oakland Now, the National Organization for Women. And it was a benefit for Now. We decided we would give the money. We gave the money to San Francisco Now. And again, we were very egalitarian. We had 52% women contributing and 48% men contributing. And they were all comics about abortion. And the book was called Choices. I was very proud of that one. And for that one, we had to form our own publishing company because nobody would publish it.
I was about to ask. That was my next question. Did you have any problems with that one?
We formed our own company.
That's, yeah. And let's see. So speaking of Wonder Woman, I guess, so you were the first female artist on Wonder Woman. Did I read that correctly?
I was the first woman to draw. Oh, there's Choices. And that cover is by Lee Mars again, by the way. I was the first woman to draw Wonder Woman in her own comic book, because Ramona Fradon had drawn her since in 1970 for Super Friends. But that was different.
Yeah. Right, because she wasn't the main character.
Right.
Is that right? So how did you get the Wonder Woman job?
They found me.
Oh, they called you. And what did they feel was, I guess, like the thing that made them go, we need Trina on the book?
Well, okay. Well, if you know superhero comics and the big two, DC and Marvel, they're always doing this kind of group thing, like Crisis on Infinite Earths, I think was the one that they had just done, where they kill off characters or they redo the characters, and all of their whole universe is involved in this, and every book has to do with this crisis. That stuff?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
so they had just done, I think it was Crisis on Infinite Earths. And they had killed off Wonder Woman. So they needed to redo her. And there's the cover of my Wonder Woman, my 6-part Wonder Woman series. They needed to redo her, and George Perez was going to be the artist for the new Wonder Woman. But that was going to take a while, So they had this period of 6 months with no Wonder Woman. And the way I see it, I kind of imagine them all the editors meeting and thinking about it, and somebody saying, well, Trina Robbins is a big Wonder Woman fan. Let's ask her to do it, because even if she screws up, George Perez will show up and he'll fix it. And so that's how they hired me.
Wow.
That's my imagination. I have no idea how it really happened.
Well, it's we all remember things in our own way, I guess. But so how long did you work on Wonder Woman? It was just for the 6 months?
6-part series. No.
Oh,
wait,
okay.
Was it 6-part? No, it's 4. How many issues? Look it up.
Randy.
I think it was 4.
Just gonna pull up Nope, that's the first one again.
Oh, okay. So
let's
I think it was 4.
Keep trying.
Okay.
Whoop.
So
Wrong button. Sorry.
I think it was a 4-part series. I'm thinking about the covers.
Right.
Okay. I thought it was 6, but I could be wrong. There's 2.
Mm-hmm. There you go. It's 4.
It
was 4.
It's a 4?
Okay, now yeah. So you're remembering.
Yeah, it says right across the top.
Yes.
4-part.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah,
oh, okay. So I couldn't see it. My screen is like this big. So. There we go. So did you work on like any other like more mainstream books after this, or it was like?
Yeah. This was the mid-60s, and I managed to convince Jim Shooter, who was the editor of Marvel Comics, and they had just started a kids line called Star Comics. I managed to convince him to let me do that's where the 6-part comes in, to do a 6-part series for girls called Meet Misty. That was like 85 through, maybe it lasted till 86.
And Meet Misty, because I'm not familiar. What kind of book was that? I mean, obviously it was for younger kids. And...
It was for girls, younger girls. Well, really teenagers even. Thank you. There's issue number 1.
Issue 1.
Okay. When growing up, I was reading, as I say, all these comics that had girls and women in them. And there were tons of girls' comics in those days. Tons. And all the girls read them. It wasn't just that I was weird, because they were comics for girls, and we loved them and we read them. And I knew that they had, because I'd been there, I knew that they'd been successful. But at this point, all all comics were superheroes, and they were being read by boys rather than girls. So I knew, there's 52% of the population that they're not selling comics to. So, like I say, I talked Jim Shooter into it. And he published 6 issues. But the trouble was, at this point, since comics were so superhero and the only place you could get them was in comic book stores, the comic book stores didn't order, or they would order like 2 copies and sell out and go, phew, we sold that, and not reorder,
Wow.
So there was nowhere, the kids couldn't find the comics.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing, really. I got so much fan mail. Every month, my editor would send me a manila envelope, huge manila envelope. There's the last issue, stuffed with letters from kids and designs, because we featured designs and we credited them. We asked readers to send in designs, and we had paper dolls, and the kids loved it, but they couldn't find the book because the comic book stores were not carrying it. So it only lasted 6 issues, which was really a shame.
Yeah. Wow. So this really does like really, because Randy keeps talking about how the direct distribution actually shrunk the market rather than
it completely shrunk the market completely. So it was only for boys, and not only that, but there was nothing for kids. It was all for like 12-year-old boys, nothing for 5-year-old boys.
Well, I think what happened, there was a demographic study that somebody latched onto somewhere that said the main comic book reader was between the age of 25 and 55, mostly male, mostly white.
Yes.
And that's exactly what they aimed for from
That's
that
what they
point
aimed
on.
for, yes.
Yeah.
And they didn't want to carry anything else.
Yeah.
In the beginning with Misty, because I was getting so many letters, so much fan mail, I would go into a comic book store and I would say, I'd look at the comics and where's Misty? I'd say, where's Misty? And they'd say, oh, we sold out. And I'd think, oh, well, that's wonderful. But what I didn't realize was they'd only ordered 2 copies and they sold them.
What's funny is that, just looking at those covers, I kind of wonder like how, do you notice how much maybe modern artists or especially during the 80s that actually, well, that book came out in the 80s too, right? So it's there's my timeline getting messed up, because I was getting such Gem and the Holograms vibe from those covers, and it's like, that was the style,
the fashion style of the day. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, okay.
Yes.
All right. It's not oh, it's were people looking at your work and going, hey, we could use that.
No, everybody was drawing like that. That was the time.
Okay, all right.
Olivia Newton-John's Let's Get Physical,
that's true,
Jim, and
that's true. Yeah,
workouts and solid colors. And,
This is where my
Headbands.
age. Yeah, this is where my age shows. Yeah. So so how long did Misty go for?
6
issues.
Yeah.
6 issues. And then now you had mentioned your paper dolls, and what's funny is I think that's when I started to actually associate your name with something at the time.
I love paper dolls.
It was your paper dolls. I don't remember where I would see them. I don't know if it was in the CBG or something, whether they would print your paper dolls. I don't know. Someone was printing your paper dolls.
Oh, I'm really sorry. Just a minute.
Okay.
Not a problem. Yep. Oh, I'm trying to find a good copy of that. Paper Dolls from the Comics book.
Yeah. Yes.
Love that book.
Now, was the paper doll something you started to do because you were doing this kids line, or was it something that you were always toying with?
I love paper dolls. I love paper dolls, and a lot of comics used to carry paper dolls, and it was almost a kind of code. Oh, thank you. That was my first paper doll book. Paper dolls connected with comics were almost a code saying these are comics that girls like to read, because girls loved paper dolls, and because the average boy does not really like to cut out and dress up dolls.
Well, I remember paper dolls being in old Sugar and Spike comics.
Sure,
So
yes.
I love that. Absolutely love that title. Yeah.
Yes.
So that was always fun to see.
So was there anything like other than so like I said, it's like the paper dolls was something that you that I began to associate your name with at the time. So it's like, so were there like other comics that you did past this, or was it like you were kind of like doing the novelty of paper dolls for a while? Or I mean, not dismissing it as a novelty, just the fact that it's just something in between comics. I mean, how did the paper dolls?
No, the paper dolls were part of the comics.
Oh, okay.
Although I did do specific paper doll books, as Randy has shown. The comics themselves would include paper dolls. Oh, and there's another one that I did, and that was a paper doll book, Flashback Fashions, about vintage clothes, vintage fashions.
Now so now that you were like considered like, so you were working with, Marvel and DC, or, like you had that kind of, you were now in kind of like the mainstream. Did you feel that your work was treated better than when you were in underground? Or, I mean, obviously you had your fans in these companies, but did you feel that getting the work was easier as opposed to when you were doing?
It was never easy getting work, because the work that I did was not typical of the comics that were sold at the comic book stores. And the result was that I just really did not have good distribution on anything that I did, because the comic book stores killed it. The comic book stores killed any attempt to do anything that wasn't traditional young man superhero comics. And I resent them like hell. They're not like that anymore, by the way. I mean, times have changed so much, and in fact, most of the guys who ran the comic book stores that wouldn't carry my books are now dead. But it doesn't mean that I resent them any less.
Wow.
Ran across a great image of Trina paper dolls where you have different superheroes.
Yes, there you go.
It's fantastic.
There I am as Wonder Woman and as Sheena, and sure, all my heroines.
Sweet.
So because of the way the distribution system was making it, I guess, difficult for you to work, aside from waiting for everyone, for all your enemies to die, was there like other things that you did as a workaround that, it's like you did with the underground, you figured, oh, now I got to figure something else to continue doing my work and kind of surviving this landscape?
I just continued doing my work.
Oh, that you just kept working. Yeah, I guess. So you said you were a retired cartoonist. So if you're retired from cartooning, so what do you I guess
I write
are doing now? So okay. Mm-hmm. And what are you writing? Like more science fiction stuff?
I've written a lot of histories. Well, first of all, I've written a lot of comics. I still write comics.
Oh, okay.
But I've also written a lot of histories of women who drew comics, women cartoonists.
There's a Century of Women Cartoonists cover.
Thank you. That's my second book about women cartoonists. This is coming out in
Let me enlarge you up here.
Right.
There we are.
Thank you.
Oh, sweet. Gladys Parker.
It's Gladys Parker who drew Mopsy. And as you can see, she looked exactly like Mopsy. And she also had a line of clothing. She was a clothing designer. She had an amazing life. So
now a lot of our listeners aren't going to be aware of who Moxie was. So could you
but
give a quick rundown of that?
You are. Well, Mopsy was a very successful comic character. From the 1930s through 1965. She died in 1966. And she just happened to look exactly like Mopsy. And she got a lot of publicity, by the way. She, most of the book is researched from reading old newspapers, articles about her.
And that's Gladys Parker. Where is that going to be available from?
Hermes Press.
Oh, okay, cool.
Now, when you were doing, your I guess your book on collecting all these all these female artists into all these volumes, like you said, like telling the history of female cartoonists, was there any particular creators that stood out for you that kind of like surprised, like make you go, oh, I didn't know that,
Oh, I didn't know any of it until I started researching it because nobody had written about these women. But two of the most outstanding, well, really three of the most outstanding. One is Nell Brinkley, and I've done an entire book collecting her work. She drew from 1906 to about 1937. Died in 44. She was amazingly successful, and the book has, of course, sold out, and it now costs an arm and a leg on Amazon. She was so good. People loved her. Girls used to cut out her work and paste them in scrapbooks. I see that Randy is looking for my Nell Brinkley book.
Yeah, he probably. Yeah.
I am. I found Flapper Queens.
Yes, that's good because she's in that. She's one of the three
Jazz
Flapper Queens. Yeah, that's my most recent book that came out last winter. Can you show people the cover? It's a lovely cover.
Let me pull. It is fantastic. Let me pull that up.
And that book is about women who drew comics during the 20s and 30s, the Flapper cartoonists. There's Flapper Queens.
Tell us more about that.
Yeah.
Well, the Flappers are so interesting, I mean, we think of them now, we just think of them as, doing the Charleston and boop, boop, doop. But they really, it had been a revolution. If you look at a woman from 1925 and you look at a woman from 10 years earlier, 1915, it's incredible. If you look at somebody from 2010, well, we look the same. There's no change, But from 1915 to 1925, the skirts in 1915 are down to the ankle. Suddenly in 1925, they're knee length. The hair is cut. The woman has been voting legally for 20 years. She's smoking, she's drinking. This isn't necessarily good, but in those days, they didn't know it wasn't good for you. But she's doing what the boys do. And they really thought that they had complete equality. We know now that we still don't have complete equality, but they really thought, wow, at last we're equal. And you can really see it in their work. Not to mention the fact that they were incredibly talented artists. And Nell Brinkley is one of them. That art is drawn by Ethel Hayes, who was just, people look at her work and they go, wow, how come I never knew about her? In fact, the books that I do about these women, people look at them and they all say, so many of them say the same thing, which was, how come I never knew about her before? And that, of course, is because they weren't written about. Because if you're not written about, you're forgotten.
Wow, so your trajectory from underground to now. I mean,
there's all the books I've done.
Wow, yeah.
That's under Trina Robbins at Amazon.com, folks. All of these books are for sale, so swing over there and take a look. There's the great women cartoonists.
So do you what's the biggest, I guess, like biggest change from when you started doing comics to, I guess, your career now, that it's like that kind of like, I mean, is there anything that makes you go, yeah, it's a lot easier now, or it's like, oh, this stuff hasn't changed at all?
Things have changed enormously. There are more women drawing comics now than ever before, and they've opened up the style. They have opened up the style that is expected. I mean, in the, from the 60s through the early 90s, through really the middle to late 90s, there was only one style, and that was the Marvel DC style. And if you didn't draw like that, you were an art cartoonist or an underground cartoonist or something like that. Now, by the way, I'm really proud of this book, Bessie Coleman. It's about the first African-American woman to get her pilot's license. Sweet. And she has a wonderful story. This was done for young readers, so, it's compressed, but I'd love to see a movie about her. Where was I? Oh, yeah.
That it's a lot more women drawing now.
We do draw differently. See, it really is true. It used to be considered an insult to say, oh, she draws like a girl. She draws like a girl was even worse. Nobody wanted to draw like a girl. Well, we do draw like girls. We draw differently than men do. Yeah. And, and that's accepted now. It doesn't have to be that Marvel DC superhero style with the fist, the exaggerated curvy fist thing,
Mm-hmm. There's goddesses with attitude.
Yes, it's about bad goddesses. The artist is Mary Wilshire. She's a cartoonist.
Sweet.
Yeah. So what's funny is that when I was like looking up some more information about you, there was like this one little piece of trivia that I thought was absolutely amazing. And and what's funny is that even though, like, according to what I found online, it seemed, rather like, oh, everybody knows about this, but I don't know if everybody knows about this. So especially with some of the discourse that I've seen around it, is that you designed the Vamparella costume.
Oh, ho hum. I'm so sorry to talk. Yes, I did. And that's such a minor thing in my life.
I mean, because it seems like such a big deal now.
It holds up to my theory that the piece of work that you are most ashamed of is the one that you're always
ashamed of it.
Okay, I'm
not
sorry.
Ashamed of it. But it's just a very minor thing. That's all.
Right. It's always that minor work that everybody always remembers.
Yeah.
So you don't want to disregard anything that you've done.
No, of course.
Because it's going to come back. You never know.
And bite you on the ass.
Who's going to be madly in love with it? Absolutely.
I mean, do you think that the Vamparella costume bit you in the ass?
Well, it's just okay. Here is how I designed the Vamparella costume. All right. I was in Jim Warren's offices. Jim Warren was the publisher of Vamparella. This is 1969, I think. And I was showing him my work, and he was letting me down easy because I don't draw like that. I don't draw like the Vamparella artists. He was being very sweet and, just basically telling me I wasn't quite ready for prime time. And got a phone call, and it was from Frank Frazetta. And Frank Frazetta was working on the first Vamparella cover and trying to come up with the costume.
No.
And Jim Warren, I think it was probably just a red bikini or something. He was trying to explain what he wanted. Mm-hmm. And I took a piece of scrap paper from his desk and I sketched the costume and handed it to him while he was on the phone. And he said, just a minute, there's a young lady here who knows exactly what I want. And he put me on the phone with Frazetta and I described it to him. And that was what he did. That's all.
There we go.
Wow. You got some of Trina's Vamparellas? Randy?
No, I didn't draw Vamparella.
Oh no,
Oh,
she
I
didn't draw
actually did.
Vamparella.
Well, so you didn't draw anything. You just drew the costume.
She just sketched out the costume in front of Jim Warren,
Oh, so
and he told Frazetta about it. Yeah,
right,
but it's become a major note on your Wikipedia page.
I know. I don't write that page, believe me.
So pretty much the artwork, the Vamparella artwork that I saw online, those were what, commissions, just you goofing around.
Goofing around, or
there we go. Yeah. I think I might have seen a Vamparella paper doll somewhere.
Yes, I did. I did Vamparella paper dolls.
Yeah. Oh, but that's funny. Cool. So it's like so the funny thing is, so it's like, so do you are you familiar with like kind of like the recent controversy about the costume? I mean, do you have any opinion on that?
I think there's always been a controversy about the costume. Right. What is it now?
I would think it'd be the usual, that it's just like too hot for prime time, I guess.
They went through and redesigned the
it's
costume.
Actually gotten smaller and smaller through the years.
Yeah, probably. But I would think that that's more artistic license rather than a flaw of the costume itself.
Well, it's whoever draws her. The thing about women in comics is, women characters in comics, is that they are, after all, only paper, and they are the slave of whoever draws them. That has happened with Wonder Woman too. That, in the 90s, she was drawn by this Brazilian artist who just, he turned her into one of these bad girl characters. Oh, there's a Vamparella that I drew. Yes.
That's from 99, I believe.
You can see, by the way, that her costume is much, there's more costume there.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
Depending on the artist, it looks more like it could go as extreme as that Barat string bikini thing. Oh, but you were saying that so there was a Brazilian artist.
Oh God. That drew Wonder Woman in the 90s, and it was horrendous. He just turned her into this bad girl character with the, like you say, the string bikini.
Right. Wow. And so it's like so when people talk about like the costume needs to be redesigned or something for the good of the nation. I mean, it's like,
is that what they say?
They tried to redesign the Vamparella with from neck to toe.
Yeah, they put her in a turtleneck or something.
And there was so much outrage.
Ridiculous. No, well, it's ridiculous. Yeah. It's like when they tried to change Wonder Woman's outfit and put her in pants, or even earlier in the 60s when they put her in that white jumpsuit, which was very cute. That white cat suit was very cute, but it wasn't Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
So pretty much, so I guess pretty much your opinion is it's not broken. It's just you were thinking it wrong.
Or you're drawing it wrong.
Wrong, right. Oh, so there you go. Right. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I mean, I still can't get over the fact that Frank Frazetta called you. I mean, it's like, because it's just
really... she was in the office.
Okay.
I just happened to be there.
That's fine. It's like, put her on the phone.
Well, there's so much. There's so much in comics that they chalk off to happy accidents. I mean, stuff that they just throw at the wall to see if it sticks, or somebody's at the right place at the right time. And this happens, and suddenly it gets blown out of proportion, because a lot of the comic work back then, nobody kept any notes. They were all too busy trying to keep deadlines.
Yeah,
of course.
And to get the book out, and make money, then to, like any of this stuff's ever going to be important.
Right.
That's why there's so much argument over like early Marvel and who created what and what did what.
And Jack Kirby, right?
Yeah. It's ridiculous because nobody's really going to know, and the players are all past anyway. So let's just chalk it off to that company did this work with these people, and there were a lot of creative synergy going on, and some of it happened to really stick in the consciousness of the culture.
Right.
And just let it be. Yeah. As long as there's a note. I mean, it's nice to see Kirby finally getting a little notation along with Stan that he co-created a lot of this stuff, but nobody's really going to know who exactly did what. and you can really tie back anything, especially with the career that Kirby had, because he had drawn so many things in so many different directions that you could pretty much link anything that he created after that to a previous work that he had done before.
Of course.
Yeah.
So if you don't consider the Vamparella costume your legacy as much as so what would you consider, like, out of your entire work body of work so far, like what do you think is, like, is there one work that you feel defines you, or is there do you define yourself more thematically?
I think I define myself thematically. I mean, basically, it's always been about women.
So Randy, you have so is there any questions that come to mind that
No, just what are you working on next? The Gladys Parker book's coming out in a few months.
Yeah, that's done and that's coming out.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm working on next. This is a good time to tell the entire audience that I'm looking for work. I'd like to write another comic. I'd like to write another book. Just get in touch with me. I'm easy to get in touch with. I'm
yes.
on Facebook. Message me.
Available on Facebook. Just drop. Well,
Yes.
That's what we did. We dropped
Yes.
Daphne dropped you a quick note. And you said, "Yeah, sure." So, well, we deeply appreciate you taking the time to be with us today.
It's
I'll tell
fun.
you that much.
It
So,
really was. It's such it kind of like makes our little underground trilogy. We did the first.
No, we really want to. This is for a show called Sunday Funnies, and we really focus on the stuff that's not the dark superhero type material. It's the more lighthearted, whimsical. But there's so many different aspects in comics. Underground is a part of it. Even the paper dolls that you've done. I fondly remember you did a Betty Boop book of paper dolls.
I did. Betty Boop paper dolls. Yes.
That was amazing. So there's just so many different aspects in comics and so many different directions. That's why we have the variety of covers here as our background. That folks, especially new readers coming in, are just so not aware of.
I think that's the first Elf Quest down there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Fantasy Quarterly.
That's
I had a comic shop in Flint, Michigan, that I sold that book through. I got comics from Big Rapids Distribution with Jim Friel, who ended up working for Bud Plant later.
You weren't one of those guys who wouldn't carry Misty, were you?
I was not doing retailing at that period, I don't believe, because I was doing my own alternative comics. I ruffled the feathers of Sid Jacobson. He offered me an internship for Star, and I asked him how much it paid, and I laughed in his face, which it was
really.
Yes, because he told me $9,000, and I said, "There's no way I'm moving to New York on $9,000."
Yeah, really,
and turned him down. I was also going through a divorce at the time, but yeah, I kind of ticked him off at a show when he offered it to me. So I was like, "No, I'm not." No. So yeah, I understand he was quite upset, but it's the way it works. Now I've spent the rest of the time in alternative and independent comics. The only time I try to pitch something to Marvel, I hit a brick wall. So I even had editors look at me square in the eye and tell me, "Do we really own that character?"
Oh no, that happened to me when I did Misty, and I said that the way to anchor her to Marvel was to make her the niece of Millie the model. My editor said, "But who owns Millie the model?" Yeah,
I totally believe that. Yeah, that's crazy. That there are people up there who aren't aware of what their history is.
Yeah.
So once that happened, I was like, I'm done. So I've been working in alternative comics. I did my own little paper here locally that had strip collections and comic book stories and single panel stories for about 10 years.
Cool.
Up here, went through 100 issues of Flint Comics and Entertainment. That's what I called it. We had little newspaper boxes all over the county. You just walk up and take paper once a month.
That was the days of the free weeklies.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, we don't even have
like
that anymore here.
No.
Yeah.
No, those are rare to find anywhere anymore. Yeah. But yeah, that's what I did. Now I'm getting back in because of the crowdfunding situation. The direct market is the retailers are having a rough time, and there are a couple of other distribution options. When I was printing alternative comics, I printed under the Arrow Comics banner and kept butting heads with Diamond because I kept kept trying to do books that were outside of their blinder set demographics. So I was done, and I did the paper. So
would they distribute you? Were they willing?
They would to an extent, and then they kept moving their they kept making a new hoop that you had to jump through. They came up minimums, they came up with dollar amounts that you had to hit, or they started telling me what I could or couldn't print, which was really irritating because I was doing a book off of the Oz books called Land of Oz. And the numbers on the book were going up because we had Bill Bryant on it. That was a really good artist, and Bill Mesner-Loebs was inking. And the numbers.
He's a friend of mine.
Okay, yeah,
Bill.
great. My first work was printed in the back of Journey.
Aha!
The first work that I did a little strip called Little Michael Taylor that had Michael climbing under a bed and finding a copy of Journey #1 that he thought was a dirty book because it was all dusty.
Bill Loebs is the best dog writer in comics.
Yeah.
He really knows dogs and he really knows women. And I know it sounds kind of like an insult, but it isn't, because he does great women and he does great dogs.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yep.
Everyone has a specialty.
He did. And he's one of, not counting William Moulton Marston, the creator of Wonder Woman, he's one of the two best, in my opinion, Wonder Woman writers.
Okay. Yeah. And he was on Wonder Woman for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that too was Bill and Nadine. His wife was doing a lot of the helping on that a lot also. So
did when you did those Wonder Woman books, did the Wonder Woman comics, did you write those too, or was that somebody else?
No. They were written by this is embarrassing. Randy, who wrote them?
Yeah, Randy, who wrote them?
Oh, that's a good question. Give me just a second, I can find out.
But I co-plotted them.
Mm-hmm. Did you have a favorite collaborator? Well, on any book.
Kurt Busiek.
Oh, Kurt Busiek, thank you. Yes. I co-plotted them. Did I have a favorite collaborator? There's been women that I've worked with who, Ann Timmons, really. We did a series called Go Girl. It was about a teenage flying superheroine, and her one talent was that she could fly. Bullets didn't bounce off her or anything else. She simply could fly. And we did that for a while in the early 90s, or maybe it was the late 90s. And I've worked with her on other projects also. And we worked very well together. She's really good.
That was from Image?
Yes.
I believe I have a copy of that, or a picture of that.
She's very good, and I love working with her.
Right there.
There we go.
Go Girl.
Yes.
So is this book still in print too, or was that on the Amazon list?
No, you can still get it on Amazon, I guess. Right. But it was the same story. The dealers, the comic book stores didn't want to carry it because it was girls.
Ew, cooties.
Exactly. No, they didn't want girl cooties. They didn't want girl cooties in their store. Really, that's it.
Wow. That's so if you had a chance, if you had if you could choose any book that you or a character that you could work on, it's like, you figure, you said that, you put out the call for looking for work. So what if you could work on any book or comic or on character that you haven't worked on, what would that be? What would your dream project be if you haven't done it already?
Well, I'd like to do some more Wonder Woman. I'd also like to do some of the girl comics that Marvel produced in the 40s. I'd love to do a Patsy Walker comic. Or one of their heroines in the 40s from about 46 through 48. Some of them lasted longer. They did about 4 or 5 women superheroes that had their own books and were really aimed at girls, but boys read them too. I'd love to do one of those.
Do you remember what the titles were on any of those?
Oh, yeah, sure. Blonde Phantom, Venus.
Oh,
Venus lasted the longest.
Yeah.
In the end, it was drawn by Bill Everett. It was gorgeous.
That was timely. Yeah.
Namora, Sun Girl. I think there was one other. I can't think of who.
It's odd that Marvel hasn't tried to put a team together with them during that time period.
I didn't even know that there was that
would be
many.
amazing.
They were great. They were great. I would love to write one of those.
There was actually a period there when Timely was aiming at a much broader market. The guys had, or the boys had Westerns, but the girls had romance comics, the Venus, Blonde Phantom.
Yes.
And the like, Sun Girl. That was mostly Timely, though, if I remember right.
Yes, it was timely. It was timely. And they were wonderful. I read them. Girls would read them again.
Well, that was the big push on that, too, was because the war was on or had just gotten done.
War was just over.
It was just over, and there was a desperate need for entertainment. People wanted to lose themselves from all of the strife and the craziness of that war. And a lot of that's when comics really tuned up and started being very whimsical. Captain Marvel, I believe, was the Billy Batson Captain Marvel was really raging at that point.
Captain Marvel was the only male superhero I liked.
There we go.
That's great.
Yeah, the C.C. Beck material. The Mary Marvel was big back then. Yeah.
Yes, Captain Marvel's sister.
Yeah. Hoppy the Marvel Bunny. We have him down in the corner.
That's right. Funny animals.
I mean, I didn't even know there was this many.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, there was such a
That's why we do this show.
Yeah. Such a variety of comics. But there is again now with graphic novels. It's amazing,
But that's because they're also reaching out, especially through crowdfunding, and finding a different audience. You're not getting that those blinders. The market is starting to open up wider, which is what I keep saying. It's such a great time for alternative comics to be out there and for folks to be crowdfunding and stretching that audience and getting the different material out there.
Yes.
So Captain Marvel was so big that even after DC stopped him over in England, they did Marvel Man for quite a few years, which is a direct copy of Captain Marvel that Marvel ended up getting the rights for just a few years back and printing as Miracle Man, completely taking all of the whimsy out of it. So
yes.
They did reprint a large amount of that material, though, and it's all amazing.
Eclipse reprinted Marvel Man.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. They did for quite a few years.
That was the whole Neil Gaiman Todd McFarlane's lawsuit thing, right?
Yeah. And again, at that point, they had taken there was a whole the big selling point over in England was that he was just like Captain Marvel. The stories were very whimsical, very lighthearted, and a lot of fun to read. And once Gaiman and Alan Moore and that got a hold of him, they turned him into realistic and tried to bring modern sensibilities to it, and took all the whimsy. So now he's just kind of Superman, a version of Superman. Anything else?
No, I'm just chuffed we were able to do this.
We deeply appreciate you taking the time to talk to us, to talk to our listeners. We appreciate it.
It's fun talking about old comics.
Yeah. Yes. Because like I said, not to confuse anybody, but I consider this a trilogy because this is because we did one episode of Underground Comics that was more like a general conversation about it. And then we got more specific when we had Dan on, and now we're being even more specific with you on. So now it's like, for me, it's like a trilogy. So it's
Go
Who
ahead.
talked about the first? The one that you said was a general conversation.
The two of us. I pulled up a bunch of
Oh.
old underground comics that I had sitting around, Freak Brothers, and that. And we started talking about undergrounds in general, because again, there's so many kids, and we have a worldwide listenership. We're on the internet radio, and this program's probably pulling down 60 to 70,000 people.
Fabulous.
And the majority of those are just comic enthusiasts that have found indievoltradio.com that listen all times of the day. You know, it could be afternoon or evening, depending upon where they're at in the world. And just sit and listen up to us talk about comics, mostly while they're working on comics themselves.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of fun to do. That's why we do it. That's why we started the Sunday Funnies show, is to broaden that spectrum out and to get away from the modern realism sense. I grew up reading Barks's Uncle Scrooge and getting that. My parents didn't let me have superhero comics when I was a kid because they thought it was too violent. So I read everything else. So I came in with a love of everything. So even once I was allowed to read superhero books, I was still reading everything else. And
Karl Barks, you can't go wrong. You know,
exactly.
I mean, I read them. I have memories of reading, Donald Duck and Huey, Dewey, and Louie, reading those books, sitting in the beach. I would take them to the beach with me, and while other kids would be in the water, I'd be sitting on the blanket reading those comics.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's why we do this show, is to stretch everybody's idea out for comics, and especially with the way the alternatives are running now with crowdfunding. Like I said, the market is really starting to stretch open. You're starting to see some varying genre books out there that need to be out there and seen. Fun stuff. And eventually, maybe those bigger companies will get around to realizing what they've got sitting in their libraries and start kicking out some decent volumes.
Yeah, they really do have a kind of collective amnesia.
Yes, they do.
Big two. They don't know what they used to publish.
Yeah, that's too true.
Yeah, especially when you're mentioning like all these different titles that they had, and it's like, then here they are trying to retool, legacy characters to fit some kind of whatever they're trying to do, when they already have an entire pantheon of characters that they could work with, already. That kind of fits what they need. So yeah, it's kind of amnesia is a good word. Yeah.
Well, I don't think it'd be too difficult if they wanted to. That's the whole key. If they wanted to go back and have somebody do an all-female team from the 40s and 50s, it'd be real easy to do.
Me.
There we go. Marvel, listen up.
Yeah, exactly.
There we go.
Yeah.
Again, after the Gladys Parker book, nothing's on your slate.
I swear it. I'm looking for work.
Wow.
Okay, she's looking for work, folks. Here we go.
Right.
There's a chance.
But buy her books in the meantime on Amazon. Is that like the main, like, would finding your books on Amazon be the main place, or do you have like a website?
Libraries.
Okay.
Under Trina Robbins, everybody under Amazon, feel free to go over there, take a look through the stuff. Some great books, great reading over there.
Right. It's Trina Robbins.
Yep.
With two B's.
ROBBNS. Yes. Mm-hmm. And again, I think we should just thank you. And
thank you.
My pleasure, really.
Anytime
you have a link, right, when this is up.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, because we're going to do we're going to do a little editing on it and put our intros and outros and
that's probably all the editing we're going to do is the intros and outros, and just run it just like this.
Phone.
That's the transparency is part of the fun. So I have my phone go off all the time. So.
It's kind of like karaoke. You don't go to karaoke to hear someone who knows how to sing.
That's right.
So people like live. Well, as live as this can get, as
this is all part of the fun
type of thing.
Yep.
Yeah. Sometimes people need to be reminded we're just real people like everybody else.
So true. And when you do the land that project, if you have anything that you want to talk about, or even if you just want to come on during an underground comics show or whatever and reminisce, you are more than welcome. Just get a hold of Daphne or myself.
Thank you.
We'd love to have you on. There's your phone
there
again.
You go.
Another spam call.
Yeah, I know, right? She has a car warranty too.
We're here to talk to you about your car warranty.
And you see, when I'm answering the phone, I leave the cat so that you can interview the cat.
There you go. Yes.
He doesn't say much though. So.
No.
You can't answer those important questions.
So yeah, so but I just want to thank you again for your generosity, and like I said, this was just as educational for me as it was allowed Randy to fanboy over you for an hour, and so
well, it was,
and for our listeners,
said something.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for having me.
Well,
thank you so much
and
for coming on.
I'll send the link the minute we have it ready for you.
Lovely.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. So,
have
a beautiful rest of the day.
Once again, folks, for our listening audience, we've been talking to Trina Robbins. Her work is available. Legend. Her work is available over on Amazon. Amazon.com. Just type in Trina Robbins under the book setting. You're going to see a whole couple of pages of work that she has done, books that she has written or drawn in, and we totally recommend you take a look at those and pick those up. So, once again, thank you so much. I'm going to hit the end record button now. And we're back. We're back, and Daphne is rebooting as we speak. We appreciate everybody hanging in there while we played that interview. We loved doing it. It was a lot of fun. And again, Trina Robbins is a true legend and gem of the industry.
Yeah. It was really cool to hear her talk about the creation of the Vamparella costume.
Yeah.
And how it's one of those things that she just did, no big deal, and it's become such an iconic part of that character that changing it seems like just
it's not Vamparella without that costume. Yeah.
Right. And I know people have edited it themselves. I mean, the Catwoman gets a new costume every year.
Yeah.
However, there are still some iconic Catwoman costumes in my mind.
But it also goes to show you how easy it is for comic history to be warped. And you go up to Wikipedia and they make note like it's a major achievement of hers. And when we brought it up, it's like, no, let's I was at Jim's. I was standing next to Jim Warren and did a quick sketch. Yeah. There's Vamparella's costume. Boom.
Yeah.
I don't even know if she got paid for it. We should have probably asked her, because it has become such an iconic image.
Yeah.
Especially for that character that I sincerely hope she got paid something.
Yeah. At least later, Okay,
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for the drawing. See you.
Yeah,
here comes Daphne.
Okay. Yeah, I had to poop out at the last minute.
Yeah. It's we're glad you're back. We're glad you're back.
Thank you.
We're glad everybody was listening. This is an edition of Sunday Funnies for the end of February 28, 2021. We appreciate you listening in. We have some notes in the chat to go through, and we deeply appreciate your patience. I'm sure some of you were sitting there wondering, I ran a banner across the bottom of the screen that it was a pre-recorded interview. We weren't really able to take your chat messages. We were very fortunate that she was able to carve out that amount of time for us.
Yeah. Because the time difference.
We weren't going to make her get up early Sunday. Yeah.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah.
He's over on the West Coast. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that would have been probably 6 a.m. for her.
Yeah, exactly.
If we were to have her on, we're not going to ask her to get up early just to talk to us. Come on. So, that's the way that works. So we deeply appreciate you listening. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed doing it, because there's a lot of history there, folks. There's a lot of memories and a lot of things that folks aren't aware of, as far as not just comics history, but the way women were treated in the industry. And in the entire, all of the industry,
I mean, that was the thing that shocked me the most. Like, I knew about it, but to hear it from her, and then it's like to kind of realize it was actually a little bit worse than I thought. I was like, oh.
Well, there's all even in in the mainstream comics, there's always been a bit of nepotism up until the last few years, where now there is isms that they go out and intentionally look for in order to write stuff, but used to just be friends or people who weasel their way into the industry.
Yeah.
So, let's see where we left off in the chat. We're after Poncho. Empyrean says, awesome. Vamparella. Yep.
Yeah.
Mike, Jimmy, wonderful. Time for some pencils in the background while this rolls. Yep. Hope you got some work done. Good morning. Hello, Trina Robbins. Hello, Joe. Hope you're doing well. Good morning, Trina. You are amazing. Trish, glad you're listening. Hope you enjoyed the interview. And sorry you couldn't speak to her directly. Hopefully sometime soon. Her schedule is she's probably not up until she's probably not even up yet. So, well, we will send her a link to this though, and they will see she will see your comments. I'm sure she's going to set through the whole program again. How about the redesigning Vamparella costume? We covered that. That gets covered. Yep.
That was my favorite section, to tell you the truth.
Well, again, like we said before you got in here, is that you never know. You can't always trust Wikipedia to give you an accurate idea of what's going on, especially when it comes to comic history. Because like I said before, nobody keeps notes on this stuff. Nobody knew. She was at the office. Boom. Here's a quick sketch. Jim looks at it and goes, "Here's what I'm seeing from this person who knows exactly what I'm looking for." Boom. And again, we sincerely hope she got paid for that sketch. Shortly after that, she designed Vamparella. No, that answered the interview. I'd really like to know how she came to. It came.
It was kismet. That's what it was.
It was kismet.
Yeah.
Yep. Trina is great. Mike Jones, absolutely. Yes, she is. Glenn says, "What a gorgeous lady! This is gold. This could only be topped if you had Jack Kirby on there. Outstanding. I don't think it would top it, Glenn, because Jack probably wouldn't say anything much if he were to bring you up today. It'd just be kind of a box. We keep talking. We talk.
Although we weren't planning a seance on Halloween.
Well, we were talking. Yeah, that would be cool. Sunday Funnies seance. Let's talk to the old guys. Here we go. That we always talked about doing DeadCon, making a big list of guests, and then when you arrive to the show, we have the same list of guests taped to the door saying, "Due to unforeseen circumstances, these people are not available." Gotta agree, Glenn. Wow, little known secret of the hippie underground that it was
so I think that the one thing that stood out for me the entire thing, so guys, so when guys do porn, it's satire. When women do porn, we're just horny.
True. I don't want to walk over that remark, but also back then it was a boys' club. And even still, even in the underground market, because the comics, thanks to this stupid code authority, had whittled things down so much, and the demographics had whittled in so much that it was mostly looked at as being boys' kiddie literature. They took when the code authority kicked in, before the code authority kicked in, you had such a wide variety of comics that were being printed out there. You did have the whimsical and the lighthearted stuff, but at the same time, something that very few people even point out, I think there's been a book by Dark Horse and that came out, but the crime books of the day, yes, were incredibly violent, but they were also incredibly adult, and they weren't being read, they were being read by kids, but they weren't primarily meant for kids. A lot of the EC material was very highbrow, was very artistic, very well drawn. And, it was almost a complete opposite of the Captain Marvel material that you'd see, so simplistic and so whimsical and lighthearted, that the art form was really stretching out until that code authority kicked in. From the desk of a small publisher, Joe, good morning,
hey,
all.
Joe.
Joe said, "Is it okay to have a tear in my eye watching this interview? It's Trina Robbins." Yeah, we were the same way. That's why you had all these great pregnant pauses.
Right, yeah. Yeah, it was just, I was like, we're in the presence of a legend and no biggie.
Arian says Tarpe Mills. Great interview, historical perspective from an actual survivor and participant of those times. Yeah, that's so true, John. John, glad you were able to listen in. I agree, John. You were saying, Varian?
I was saying that I thought that I didn't know if because I had to step away for a while. Did she mention that the Sandy Comes Out comic? And she's like, she drew the first comic about a lesbian character.
No.
No, yeah. Had I realized, you know what it is? It's like
it's another note that freaking Wikipedia should probably make.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, there's just like she has like a tremendous volume of work, and it was just kind of like there was stuff like, yeah, there was stuff we didn't even touch on, you know, and it's like. It was just so much of it. I mean, we were joking in the beginning that it's like she probably has so much work she doesn't remember everything. And then she said, "Yeah, that's exactly what."
But she was very progressive in attitude at the time, not just in feminism, but gay rights and
right,
very, very much so. Empyrean says, "Ha ha! I was waiting." All interview for this part.
I thought everyone would appreciate the Vamparella.
The Trina version would not be out of place in the Archies, really. Yes, that's true. I think they did the Archies meet Vamparella at one point. They've done the Archies meet everybody else.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
If it's more lighthearted stuff, I'd love to join with Life on Korra.
Yeah, I think he sent in a sample for us to look at.
Oh, did he?
Check it out. I haven't done it yet, but I know he sent in a sample to indieworld.com.
Cool, Mike. We'll give it a look. LMAO. This is John Celestri again. Interesting that Trina loves the original Captain Marvel, both art styles and stories. C.C. Beck's clean style is considered girlish, which means my own clean style is considered girlish.
Yeah, it's kind of.
I was thinking the same thing, John.
It was it's weird to even think of that conversation where it's like, oh, I think there was at one point I did have kind of like an identity crisis with my own artwork, considering that. It's like, oh, is it like too masculine? Is it feminine? Is it this? Is it that? And it's like, look, it's just my artwork.
And it also goes out to show the incredibly wide appeal that C.C. Beck's Captain Marvel had at that time. That DC literally squelched when Captain Marvel ceased publication. The majority of the talent, except for CC, really, especially the writers, all jumped over to DC because they were DC picked up a lot of that talent because under the Code Authority they had no idea what they were going to do. So that's why you have this entire period there, Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, that's incredibly light, very whimsical, weird things are going on. Batman's on the circus at Mars. Superman's, dealing with every weird character that you can imagine under the sun. All the imaginary tales sprung out from that era, and it's because these guys that had been working, guys and girls that had been people that had been working. I'm not sure how many female writers they had over there at the time. All of this talent that was working on Captain Marvel pretty much jumped over to DC because they were the only game in town for a while printing superheroes. So that cat is mysterious. She is. Cameron says, "This is awesome.
Thank you.
It was all due to the guests and our drooling." So,
yeah. Yeah, pretty much.
I loved hearing about the comics she read. I have 2 points of data. My mom knew everything to know about the quality comics characters. Yeah. Yep. Cameron laughs. LOL. Where are we at? Here we are. Says that was wonderful. Thank
you.
Great stuff, guys. Thanks, Russ, very much. Comic book black belt. Only death can save us. Also, somewhat serious but very lighthearted tale.
Yeah, definitely.
Empyrean says, my ex-girlfriend's mom, who must be 70 at least, had many stories of her vast comics collection. Sure. John Celestri, again, great interview. Thank you. Much. Yeah. So obviously comics were very big for both boys and girls of that era. Yes, they were. They were literally selling well over 500,000 per title.
Yeah, that was distressing. I mean, because I know that you've mentioned it a lot, but I mean, I don't know. It's like hearing it from her too, and it was just like, wow. It's like just to see how everything just like got smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller.
Well,
as
that
we
was
get to now.
that was the degradation of the code authority that did that. Once it was labeled as kiddie stuff, and there was a final uprising. The Senate hearings, the Seduction of the Innocent book, which Wortham had since, come out and said that was pure BS. But that had a great impact on people.
And also the creation of the direct market.
Yeah.
Just, yeah.
If you ever get a chance to see a Martin and Lewis movie with Shirley MacLaine in it called Artists and Models, that you see circulated. I'm not sure if TCM carries it very often, but if it ever comes up, you need to watch it, because Dean Martin plays a comic book artist who's working on a book that's like a Batwoman type character. And Jerry Lewis is his writer, because he's got this kiddish attitude about himself and the spark of imagination. And it's real interesting to see the attitude that they had for comics back in the 1950s during that era, because that was just as they were starting to really ramp up the Senate hearings and the juvenile delinquency angle and how evil comics were.
Oh no. Wow. Okay.
It's fascinating to watch.
So it's called Artists and Models.
Artists and Models. It's Jerry Lewis, Dean Martin, Jerry Lewis, and Shirley MacLaine. Shirley MacLaine at the height of her talents too, by the way. She was just amazing in that. Great interview, Empyrean Vol. Glenn says, I met Jack Kirby. Believe me, he'd have a lot to say. I'm sure he would. Well, maybe not, but anyway. Andrew, thanks for listening, Andrew. Quite enjoyed the discussion. Just read her From Girls to Girls from the Flint Public Library. Wonderful book. Great to listen to its author. Great to hear direct from one who accomplished so much of this history, and who has cultivated such knowledge of the earlier history in which she was not involved herself. Well, yeah, she said that if you don't write about these figures, they're going to be forgotten in time, and that's what's happening. So that's what she's really trying to keep from happening. If you ever get a chance, again, over on Amazon under Trina Robbins, she's got 2 incredible volumes about women in comics that I think everybody would be surprised if they read.
That was the thing that surprised me most about this interview, that it's like, I kind of imagine people as being like, like standing on shoulders, and here she is the shoulders. Yeah. Everyone stands on. And it's just like, it was just weird to kind of like realize that it's not that, what surprised you? Well, everything surprised me because I had to learn everything. I was the only one talking about it. And it's like, oh my goodness, like that's a heavy responsibility.
Yeah. And anybody out there in the alternative or independent market that's done something that's non-superhero has banged their head against the wall, especially against Diamond over and over again. And then the retailers get mad when we make money in the direct market for not being not in the direct market, but through crowdfunding for not being in the direct market. So
in the direct market, they would have ignored us anyway. So it's like, so which is it, dudes?
Yeah. Empyrean says, well, I'm glad Trina stated that there are more feminine and masculine art styles. Obviously, there are, but you aren't allowed to say that much. Yeah. It's
kind of weird. I don't know.
And I think, again, those barriers, now that the audience gets wider and the talent pool gets wider, those barriers are breaking down.
Right. Yeah.
And you can't really define an art style as girlish.
Right.
It might be more of a lighthearted style or a cartoony style, but how do you tell gender?
I mean, because you see, the funny thing is that, like, I think that there are like certain little things that male and female creators bring to their work, but I mean, to have that overall, you draw like a girl thing. I mean, it's like, what does that even mean at that point?
Right?
Andrew
says, notice the superhero story in Spiegelman and Mooley's beautiful book, Classic Children's Comics, is a C.C. Beck Captain Marvel. Yeah. Yep. Empyrean Vol says, I'd call some artists romantic styles and others more action or visceral.
Okay. Yeah. Go more genre.
Roughly equates. Yeah.
Yeah. More genre than than gender.
Well, you get into like some of those romance comics
Yeah.
that they kicked out during that period, and who could tell? Bob Oxner, I believe the guy's name was, who did a lot of that work. It's very hard to, you can't just point at it and go, oh, that's you draw like a girl. That's
right. Yeah, exactly.
The what is that? Linclair style is often described as female. Yeah,
I think it literally translates to clean line. I guess that's what it looks like.
Yeah, that could be too, because that's CC Beck all over. It's clean lines.
Right.
Yeah. Yep. Daphne, you should check out Tarpe Mills.
Sure, I will do that.
A blockiness of Kirby's forms feel very male to me, by contrast to, say, let's use Penny's elves. But Barry Blair had a very feminine style, in my opinion. I think he had a soft style.
Yeah.
Again,
and also it's like I would more describe Wendy Peeny's style as more sensual, very sensual, Yeah, because I was looking at ElfQuest the other day, and I'm like, wow, it's like I forget like what these things look like after a while. But yeah, she had a very sensual style. Kirby was very action oriented. Yeah, it's like, even I'm about to say he had a very masculine style.
Yeah. I think that there's some art styles that you just look at and you think, oh, this looks very feminine to me. This looks very masculine to me, just because I think we're just programmed that way.
I think that's programming.
And again, Kirby and Simon are attributed for creating the romance comic genre.
Mm-hmm. So Rumiko Takahashi is the creator of Sailor Moon. There is nothing more feminine than her art style. When you look at it, like, whoa. I remember picking up the book, and I'm like, I got her. I got one of her books.
Well, I think Takahashi was Ranma.
Ranma. I'm sorry, not Rumiko Takahashi. Sailor Moon is I can't think of her name right now, and I have her book.
Right, you're staring at it.
Yeah. I'm gonna kick myself.
Okay,
but
the creator of Sailor Moon.
Yeah, she has a very.
Don't try to strain your brain this early in the morning.
Where it looks like
more coffee.
Yeah, that's what I need. It looks like it's like this actual, like, she does, like, how we talk about the not the dot matrix, but the zipper tone.
Yeah.
Well, Nanako Takeuchi, I think is her name. She does that with like flowers.
Yeah.
Like it's like she has a flower
pattern
that she puts in to the books, and it's really, really
romantic.
Like, yeah, you look at it and you're like, oh, like when I bought the manga, I was like, okay, this is gonna be like the cartoon. I know there'll be a little difference. There'll be some differences. No, like there are panels where she literally does not finish a figure. Like at all. Like she's like, nah.
Right.
Why finish that?
It's efficiency in line, I guess. Maybe.
Yeah. And it's not bad, don't get me wrong. Right. It's just, and it looks good, it works for her style. But when I look at it, I'm like, yeah, it's a very feminine style.
And before we end today's episode, we really want to give a tip of the hat and a deep thanks to Dan Fogel for being on a few months ago, or about a month or so ago. Mm-hmm. If you haven't seen our episode with Dan Fogel, do go back there and watch that. Dan does the Fogel's Underground Comics Guide, and he was the one that suggested us looking at Trina and having her on in the first place. Mm-hmm. We're deeply glad that we did, and that he suggested that. And we'll have Dan back on here very, very soon. So, and also I want to thank the guys. Was it Kino Subway and Russ were both on Morning Roast a few days ago and said some incredibly kind things about my work and Arrow Comics in general. And we deeply appreciate that, and don't think it went unnoticed. So we deeply love you guys too. And anytime you want to have us on, all you have to do is ask, and you are welcome to come on anytime you want. Absolutely. So is there anything else that we need to cover other than to thank Trina Robbins again?
Yeah, no, for real.
Coming on, we'll have her on again soon. And hopefully anytime she wants to come on, like I said, that door is always open. And we really, seriously, folks, we just barely scratched the surface of her work.
That's true. So,
Yeah,
we just hit the high points barely, like a stone skipping across the lake.
Yeah, I would tell people to go research, buy our work, because that it's funny. We can kind of learn a lot about a person through their work, what they've done, and you begin to understand. Oh, I get why they did this thing. It's really we're all snitching on ourselves through our work.
It really that's why the whole thing about separating the art from the artist is kind of disingenuous, because it's like, you know what, you really can't. You really can't. We put so much into ourselves into the work, and it's like, yeah, and everything that Trina does, you can see this is her. It's like, yeah, it's
Well, like she said, she sums her body or her work in general up thematically. She's always been feminist. She's always been
right
the way that she is. So very true.
Yeah.
Folks, again, we want to thank you for listening to this episode of Sunday Funnies for February 28th, 2021. I've been your host, Randy Zimmerman. Co-hosts Varian Grant and Daphne Lage are here also. Varian, are there any numbers?
Yeah, we were up to it stopped about 10 minutes ago. It hasn't up. 20 minutes ago. Hasn't updated since, but we got up to 52,500.
Very nice,
so.
very nice.
Awesome.
Thank you.
We appreciate each and every one of you listening throughout the globe. And tell your friends, Sunday Funnies every Sunday, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So adjust your clocks accordingly. We want to do more episodes like this one, maybe not necessarily pre-recorded shows, but we want to have people on that stretch the boundaries of comics as you know it, of sequential art, so that you can get better educated, so that you know more about what's happened, not just our history, but what's going on now that stretches those limitations of alternative and independent comics that we really need to stretch out. Now is the time for us to do that, especially now that the mainstream are constantly dropping. The corporations are snubbing their nose at printed comic books and are desperately trying to find a way. Marvel's always seem to have that in general, to disdain the retailer and turn their back on them. If you get a chance, go to your local retailer, spend a couple hours there at the shop, go through those boxes that have dust on them that might be close to the floor, and look for Trina Robbins' works, Misty, the Wonder Woman books. There's all sorts of other independent work that she has done. And like I said, our interview today is just barely a stone skipping across the lake as far as the body of work that she's done.
And also, it doesn't help either that Marvel is trying to literally change the history. So it's we need to speak to these people directly, to all the creators directly.
Well, you're finding a lot of these companies are turning their backs on their history because it's not making them money, or it's not pushing their silly agendas, as opposed to trying to stretch their audience. As if they would do that, they'd have a larger soapbox to speak.
Yeah.
But, on the other hand, it's constantly getting smaller and smaller, and it's their it's their fault. It's our responsibility to knock the readership out as wide as we possibly can, get out there in front of as many noses as we can, and show them the true potential of sequential art. That's what we're here for. Enough soapboxing. Barry, and tell folks where people can find you.
KYD_V on Twitter. Varian Grant on pretty much any social media after that. Last Call Comics.com, IndieVault.com, LEDG.us for getting your independent book in comic stores. Thankfully, all the ones that were horrible have died. Thanks, Trina told us that. All the horrible comic shop owners are dead.
Yeah, that was good too.
Yeah, that got a nice laugh.
Live your enemies.
That got a nice laugh from my whole household who was listening.
Yeah,
that was great. So that's pretty much where you can find me. Sorry, I'm still waking up.
That's all right.
Got a busy day ahead of me, so
hopefully that old retailer stereotype is dying away and passing away. I know Marvel's been trying to cash in on that a lot. The executives up there are like going, they're all those retailers are those masculine males who don't want to do, It's time to really, again, stretch the market out in as many places as you can. Daphne, tell people.
You can find me and my work at egoworks.com, EGOWORKS, where you can read the first 5 issues of Ego Raven, Heir of the First Unicorn, for free. Sign up also for my monthly newsletter to keep up to date when my next Kickstarter is coming out. And if you prefer your fantasy to be more running, jumping, skipping, climbing, Mountain Doom type, you can head over to Tall Tales, TAILS online.com, where you can read the first 20 issues of Tall Tales for free. And also sign up because we have a Kickstarter for the first volume. We're re-releasing the first volume of Tall Tales Thieves Quest from the beginning, somewhere in late March. We don't have an exact date yet, but we're definitely targeting late March. So sign up to get updated when that goes live.
Great. And folks, I've been your host, Randy Zimmerman. You can find me over on Facebook. And if there's anybody like Trina Robbins that you want to have interviewed on a future Sunday Funnies program, please feel free to go over to Facebook, friend me, and send me a PM. Let me know who you think you'd like to hear from, because we really want to, like I said, stretch our wings into the different areas of sequential art that aren't necessarily your dark and realistic tones.
And make sure you message Randy, because he's the only one with the juice to make it happen. I don't have the.
Well, we know people. We can know people. We can find people who know people, and we saw how accessible Trina Robbins is. And by the way, if you're a publisher out there who's interested in Trina's work, friend her on Facebook. Contact her there. She's looking to write more comics.
We'll start the hashtag today. Hire Trina. Hashtag
hire Trina.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm gonna go hashtag it right now.
Your hand might get shaky and you might retire from cartooning or drawing, but the mind is still sharp. And you can still write, and you can still keep going from there. Folks, we're going to be back. The Indie Volt Radio Network will be back on Monday at 9 p.m. with It Came From Webtoons, where we talk about digital comics with Varian and Eric Hodson, Dreaded Dinosaur. Then we're back for the regular Live Wire show, and we're entering that month of March. So that's important. Our March is our 2-year anniversary mark for doing the Tuesday night podcast. We've been doing this for 2 years successively. I don't think we've even missed a week on the Tuesday show since we started. So we're going to be celebrating a little bit, especially with the Indie Volt Revolt book. On the Livewire program is 9 p.m. Eastern time on Tuesday nights. Then Wednesday nights at 9 p.m., the Indie Princess comes out, and whoever else that she can grab to do Geekgasm, which is comics and genre geekdom, I guess you would say, from a female perspective. That's 9 p.m. on Wednesdays. Then at 9 a.m. Thursday morning, Varian and I, and sometimes Daphne, most times Daphne, will be back for the Breakfast Buzz at 9 a.m. Eastern time on Thursday morning. And then once again, we'll be back here for Sunday Funnies at 9 in the morning next Sunday, where we'll have another topic or bring in a bunch of people to hopefully talk about comics and comics history and all of the different aspects of comic dumb that aren't dark and overly realistic. So before we leave, we really need to do another bit of business here. Before we go, we want to point out the Indie Volt Awards that are coming. Here's an ad for that. Probably need to do a narration over top of that for our radio audience, huh?
I can make voice.
Pardon? That's the Indie Volt Awards coming in mid-September at your local or at our local Dave and Buster's. It'll be broadcast worldwide through indievolt.com. For more information, indievoltawards.com. Is that right?
That's correct.
All right, awesome. So is there anything else folks need to sign up for Liberty? If you are a comic publisher or a retailer, Liberty Distribution. That's what's that?
LED.us.
LED.us.
LEDG.us. Yeah.
LED. Okay. Right.
What is this? Yeah, just LEDG.us. I always tell people I was going to be Liberty Independent Entertainment Distribution, but the abbreviation is Lage, and I'm like, nah.
Stay tuned next week, folks. We'll be talking more about Indie Volt Revolt as we begin our campaign for that. That's going to be a anthology collection that is currently close to 120 pages. That might stretch out to be even wider. I'm thinking of making stretch goals, additional stories.
Oh, cool.
So if we hit this mark, we'll add this story. Maybe we'll talk varying into finally doing that Tipsy story. That'll go for so long. What Indie Volt Revolt is going to be about is it's going to be a collection of short stories, not previews, not little 8-page or 7-page come and get my book later type things, but a collection of short stories by a lot of the people that you see here on Indie Volt that are in the chat or that have been on the show at one point or another, or that are very frequent listeners, to show off their stuff. So if we mention somebody on the podcast, you'll be able to go to that book and look and see a great sample of their work. And by great, I'm not just boasting here as an editor. I'm telling you, this is some of the best work by these people that I have ever seen. And I'm so proud of the quality of art that we've got on this book. It's going to really be an amazing title. So stay tuned for that. That'll be coming up through Indiegogo soon, crowdfunding on that book, hopefully within the next week or so. I just got past my commercial art job. And so now I'm going to be able to concentrate on Arrow Comics 4.0 and on getting that Indie Volt Revolt book up and out. So we have just about everything in house. I think I've got 2 stories, a promise maybe from Varian here for doing another title, and a couple of other promises for stories out there. But like I said, we'll make them stretch goals and see if we how we do, and maybe make Varian actually do that story.
Yeah. I'm like Dr. Dre in the Chronic 2000 CDS. It was like, yeah, I guess I'll do it. I guess no, I it's funny, and I keep saying this, people don't believe me, but like, the Indie Volt Revolt book is really, Randy's return to publishing.
That'll be that'll be the first book out from Arrow Comics 4.0.
Right, like it's like, and like so he's like dragging, like I really don't have anything to do with it. Like it's like I don't. I'm amazed, and I kind of like it because I'm like I get to see it like just like a fan. I get to see it, oh, it's done. It is because you get jaded a bit making these books. You get jaded. Yeah. Oh, it's a comic book. I know what you did there, blah, blah, blah. But when you get a book from someone else and you get to see all the pieces come together and you have literally nothing to do with it, it's magical. Maybe I'm just lazy too.
Well,
yeah,
but you actually have something to look forward to because you haven't seen it a billion times.
Yeah. If I do put a story in there, I'm gonna skip right past it. I guarantee you, it'll be the nicest pages in the book. Like I'll skip past because I won't touch them. Oh, that's my story. Figure that. And then too, the more the talent in the book increases, the less I want to be in there because I'm like, I'm gonna put my stuff in there.
No, don't even say that, because I got a couple artists right now that are giving me the same SOB story.
That's like, listen,
it's like no, you need to be in the book.
Hey,
people need to know who you are.
Listen, you don't come out on stage. You don't come out on stage after Eminem. Okay, you don't come out on stage after Temptations.
Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah, I'm gonna follow Jimi Hendrix.
Trust me when I tell you that 3/4 of the fun of this book so far is making the print file going, I'm gonna put this person in front of that person. No, I'm gonna put this person back there. I'm gonna put this person over here. We want to start the book off with a nice foot here, not too spectacular. Put that guy in the middle because that's an awesome story. I'm doing that a lot.
The logistics of it,
like a little kid in a candy store going, I get to show you this, and then I get to show you this, and then you're going to see this, and that's killer. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
You don't get to see, and believe me, you get to show off great covers like this from Russ Leach for the book. And the covers were just coming in so good. I knew I had to make it a flip book. So we'll be going in at least 60 pages on both sides until you hit the middle, which will be a credits page of a rough description of who everybody is and what they've done and where to find more of their stuff. So, all right, I think that's it. Are we done? Is there anything else you want to say, Varian?
I'm gonna be online later today. I got
large announcements, huge announcements.
Yeah, I got
modest
the
announcements.
Yeah, I got the ICA awards, and also which I'm hosting part of that. I'll be giving out some awards for crowdfunding, innovations in crowdfunding.
Oh, that's
for that. That'll be today, later today, and then check out the ICA awards Facebook for that. Also, Lola dropped the cover to her first.
Yes, very nice, very nice. Yes.
She dropped the cover, so make sure you go over to Lore on Indiegogo, sign up.
Lure.
Lure.
Yeah.
Go check that out on Facebook. Not Facebook, on Indiegogo. Sign up. She's really excited about it. It's really coming together. I'm proud of her. Once again, a book I have nothing to do with. It is great. It is great. I think I helped with one little scene in that book, and that was it. It's terrific. It's like
look at that. Lola's having her first comic baby.
Yeah. Exactly.
But it is.
This one took a lot longer than 9 months to make too. This one was yeah. But so she's excited. She's working on other issues now.
But
do you draw the Flintstones naked? There's a market for that.
There we go.
Why? Yes, there is. Yes, there is.
Folks, thanks again for listening to us. We hope you enjoyed our interview with Trina Robbins. And again, we look forward to doing a lot more of that in the future. So take care, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. Have a great rest of your weekend. We'll talk again very soon. We're going to go out the way we should have come in, but we didn't. We're going out with our opening, folks. Here we go.
Ciao.
Stay healthy, everybody.
You've accomplished.
Don't mess with the bull, young man. You'll get the horns.